Configure password management. Hey everyone, Ben Finkel here, and in this nugget, we're going to take a look at how we can use the portal.office.com interface as well as PowerShell to manage the password policies for the users of our Office 365 tenant. Ugh, password policy. We've all dealt with it, right? You go to log into your account and it says, hey, your password's expired, you have to choose a new one, and you're like, oh, come on, I just did that 30 days ago. So you go and you key in your new password, and then it's like, nope, sorry, that's the same password you just used. You have to come up with a new one, and you're frustrated. So you type up a new unique password, and then the system says, I'm sorry, you didn't include enough lowercase or numbers or capitals or whatever the case is. You got to choose a better password than that. And at this point, you're so frustrated you want to throw your computer out the window. Yeah, I get it. It's frustrating, but it's also an important part of your security profile. It's kind of a first gate, a first step to protecting your data from malicious attackers is having a good sound password policy. And thankfully, Office 365 makes it very easy to implement that password policy. I've logged into portal.office.com here, and I'm just going to launch the admin panel and show you exactly where password policies are set for your tenant. In the admin center on the left hand side, there is a settings option, and you pull that down, there's a security and privacy tab. Security and privacy has right up here at the very top password policy, and you can see the days before passwords expire and the days before a user is notified about expiration. So two key values here. 90 days, every 90 days the password is going to expire. Every 3 months users will have to pick a new password. And 2 weeks ahead of time they're going to get a notification about that so that they can proactively change it if they want. You want to change these values? That's cool. Just click edit up here and change it to whatever you want. So you know what? I'm a mean administrator. It's got to be changed every 30 days and you're going to get a notification a week ahead of time. Click save. The password policy has now been updated for the entire Microsoft Office tenant. You may have also noticed on that page up here at the very top was set user passwords to never expire. So I could flip that on. Then there would be no expiration. Don't do that. That's just bad security policy. There's no really good reason to do that. An important part of keeping your system secure is having a good sound password expiration policy. Now you may have noticed some settings that are missing here. For instance, you cannot set the number of passwords to remember that cannot be reused, and that is automatically set to 1 for you, and you can't change it. So users can recycle a password, yeah, every other expiration if they want. They can't reuse the same one immediately, but they could have, 2 passwords and just alternate between those. So that's something important to keep in mind. You can't control that. You'll also notice that there are no complexity requirements here, and that's because Microsoft Office enforces complexity without allowing you to change it or turn it off. It's too important for us to be able to change. Those password complexity requirements are listed here. You're allowed any letter, upper or lowercase, any number, and any of these symbols. You cannot use spaces in your passwords, and you can't use Unicode characters. So that means no letter Enya or accent AQ on the letter E. Finally, passwords have to be between 8 and 16 characters, and they have to include 3 out of the 4 following features: lowercase, uppercase, numbers, or symbols. So you could have uppercase numbers and symbols, you could have lowercase numbers and symbols. You get the idea. 3 out of 4. That makes a complex password. One interesting thing to know about the password policy is that they are domain specific. So let's take a look here. Right now the passwords are set to 30 and 7, and if I look at my domains, that's actually for the cbtnuggets2016.onmicrosoft.com domain because that's the default domain. If I come down here to CBT and Rocks and I set this is my default domain, close this back up and come back to my security and privacy, now it's 60 and 10. Why is that? That's because CBT and Rocks has a different password policy than the other domain. So when you're setting your password policy here in the interface, you're always setting it for the default domain. When we drop down to PowerShell and we try to do these things in PowerShell, it's called get-msol password policy, which is the commandlet for getting the password policy. I've already called connect-msol service, by the way, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out the nugget on connecting PowerShell to Office 365. I have to pass in a domain name parameter here to get the policy. So if we look at cbtandrocks.com, it's going to return, notification days 10, validity period 60. But I can run this same command for cbtnuggets2016.onmicrosoft.com, and it's going to give me back different settings. Same thing when I call the set-msol password policy. This command that allows me to set the password policy, well, I got to pass in a domain name in order to do this. So cbtandrocks.com, I can make the validity period, we'll make it back up to 90 days, and the notification days will set to 14. Go ahead and execute that, and now that updated it only for CBT and Rocks. So when I come back here to my portal and look at my password policy, just refresh this page. Yep, look at that. Now it's set to 90 and 14, but again, only for that single domain. The other domain, if I come back here and switch this domain back to be my default, is still set to 30 and 7. So every domain is managed independently. Another important part of password management is the ability to reset passwords, right? Now that we've set these nice stringent password requirements, people are going to forget their passwords. It's an unfortunate trade-off to better security. Well, resetting passwords is real easy to do. Anyone who is a global administrator or a user management administrator or a password administrator can come in here to the users and select the user account and simply click the reset password option. This is going to either auto-generate a new password for them, or it'll allow me to type in a new one for them, and it's going to force them, if I wanted to make the user change their password when they first sign in. So I'm going to let it auto-generate and force the user to change it. Click the reset button. It is going to tell me the password that it generates for this user right now. So there is the new password, Vopo8032, and I can send the password in an email if I would like to some other people. That's not always necessarily the best idea. A lot of times you want to uncheck that, and then you as the administrator can either tell the user over the phone what their temporary password is or text it to them via SMS. There are a number of more secure ways to communicate this information as opposed to simply telling the user or emailing the user in plain text in an email. There are also some useful PowerShell commands for this as well. If we pop this PowerShell window open here, you're going to look at set-msol user password command, and this will take as a single parameter either the object ID, the GUID for the user, or user principal name, which would be Ben Finkel at cbtoffice.com. If I run it just like this with no other commands, that's the same as the thing that I just did there. So it returned back the temporary password, BAVA, whatever that is, and it's going to force that user to change it the next time they sign on. If I want to supply that password, I can put that in here as a new password. So I could say, you know what, it's going to be XYZ123456. Now that's the new password that they're going to use, and the force change password parameter will allow me to indicate whether or not they have to change it. So I could set a new password and set this to false, and you know what? Now that's their password and they won't be forced to change it the next. Oops, did you yell at me there? It wasn't a strong password. There you go. I violated my own password complexity requirements by not having the third parameter there. So that's good. It caught me to make sure I didn't do something bad. The last thing I want to show you is how you can enable self-service password requests or password resets. And this is, just like it sounds like, how you can enable users to reset their own passwords. Back here under Security and Privacy under the Settings tab, right down at the bottom you see Let Your People Reset Their Own Passwords. And to turn this on, you have to go to the Azure AD Admin Center. So this is a feature of Azure Active Directory. If you recall, I've mentioned this before. Azure Active Directory is the directory behind Office 365. And for some advanced features, we need to log into Microsoft Azure. So clicking this link is going to hook me up with the setup right here. And I can fill out the required information. It's going to create my subscription inside of Microsoft Azure for me. And you'll see that it takes a few moments to get it all set up. This typically takes up to 4 minutes. I don't know where they came up with that number, but that's apparently the amount of time that it takes. Once this is done, I'll have access to the Azure Active Directory portal. Different than the Office 365 portal, it's the Azure portal, and from there I'll be able to enable things like self-service password resets. Alright, that's complete. The page refreshed. I can start managing my service, and it's going to launch me into the portal.azure.com interface. Yeah, this is a whole course in and of itself. Actually, you can check out my courses on Azure in cbtnuggets.com, but we're just going to launch on the left here Azure Active Directory. That's really the only part that we're concerned about for this purpose. And once I'm in here, down on the left-hand menu, there's an option for password reset. I select this. Properties, self-service password reset enabled for nobody, a group, or everybody. So a group allows me to just indicate a specific security group that has access to reset their own passwords. Everybody allows me to set it so that everybody in the directory can reset their own passwords. Click Save, and now the password reset policy has been saved, so everyone has a link to reset it. How do they do it? Well, you see down here back in the Office 365, it says after you turn it on, you need to send users to the following website so they can set up access to their alternate phone number and email address. This is how they can use an alternate email address to get their new password when it gets reset, or set up their phone to get texted the new password when they reset it. So you need to do a couple of different steps here to enable self-service password reset, but it's actually probably a good idea. It's actually a lot stronger security to let users manage their own password resets as opposed to having a IT help desk support person do that for them. So that's it for this nugget on configuring password management. Just to recap, you can configure the password policy, both the length before your passwords expire, as well as the amount of time before users are notified of that expiration inside of your portal or with PowerShell using the set-msol password policy commandlet. You cannot change the password complexity requirements, however, those are enforced by Microsoft without any input from you. Password resets can be performed inside of the Administrative Center in portal.office.com or with PowerShell commandlets, or you can go to Azure AD and you can actually enable self-service password resets for users so that they can reset their own passwords. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.